Yeah, that's right, I see the chat. I see y'all rocking, I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building, you know what I'm saying? Hit that like button, show your love, show your support, you know what I'm saying? This that dope soul, this that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knicks family. Welcome to the Knicks Recap and Reaction Show. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen, joined by Knick Nation, who's gracious enough to join me this Sunday. I appreciate you.
Good
The Knicks
morning.
lost yet again last night, 106-99 at home versus Phoenix. Third straight loss. They've lost 8 of their last 10. They're now third in the Eastern Conference and either 1 or 1.5 games out of the play-in, if I'm not mistaken. 6 games out of first place. The bottom has definitely fallen out from under this team. I would say, before I hand it over to Knick Nation, that the losses haven't been for the same reason, right? We're still losing, don't get me wrong, but we're losing in different ways. Just like earlier in the season, we found different ways to win. Now we're losing in different ways. One game on that West Coast trip, if you can remember, it was crunch time. Brunson turns the ball over a few times. We're not able to close. Sacramento, a disaster. Last night, I thought the effort was there defensively. I thought the Knicks got out to a really good start, both energetically and just scoring the basketball. And then we'll get into it more later. The fourth quarter, we can't hit the side of the barn. So, and the defense, I should say, the defensive energy was there, but the defensive execution, in my opinion, has just been like our pick and roll. When somebody gets picked off, it's over. And the over rotating, in my opinion, somebody takes one step toward the key, we're over rotating and leaving 3-point shooters. So the effort was there. I'm not so sure about the execution. And then in terms of us losing in different ways, players are in and out of the lineup. Now Brunson, first it was Hart and Robinson. Now it's it was Brunson and Robinson. Now it's Brunson and Hart, so we're finding different ways to lose. But I thought the effort was there for the most part last night. We'll get into the particulars, but Knick Nation, just give me how you feeling and give me your overview of the game last night, and then we'll delve into it more deeply.
Yes. Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Good morning to everybody out there in the chat. Yeah, this has been a tough grind. Yesterday we were all optimistic that they came home, and we were hoping that they were able to, squeak out a win. We heard late in the day that Brunson and Hart would both be out. So we knew that, just as, I had spoken on the show earlier than that we just needed to grind, to really grind it out. And we made a very conscious effort at grinding and mucking up the game. I was happy to see a few of their players over there with bloody noses and things like that. It shows that, hey, these guys were trying to give it their all, so it's just that you can't say that we didn't give a defensive effort last night. You know what I mean? There were some poor executions down the end. I think we truly got hurt on the offensive glass. They had a lot of rebounds, offensive rebounds, where they kicked it back out and basically, hit us with daggers. So that hurt us. I think that was the real separation point in the game, and the fact that we just couldn't close out. And we didn't have, we have, but he just couldn't pull it off as far as somebody to help us close out the game. I think Cat came back in the game with 4:42 left, you know what I mean, to stagger the points up. He had quite a bit of fouls again. He also had 5 fouls again last night. So when he came back in, wasn't able to pull it off. So it's disappointing. But as fast as we're disappointed, we flip back around. It's snowing in the New York area here, and you
It's
flip
snowing
back
in
around.
Georgia, believe it or not.
Oh
It's
yes,
snowing
yeah,
it never
yeah, I heard
snows.
that. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I heard that. That's definitely wild. So, and
That's why.
I'm back in North Carolina. I don't think it's snowing there. I looked on my cam, so I don't think it's snowing there. But for some reason, how the weather patterns are working is just weird. Um, but it is definitely getting it in here. It's like a lake effect. So, but as fast as like they say, what's name? You got a game tomorrow, so they got to suck it up, get that energy back, and grind. We got to figure this out
Yeah.
because if the pattern in which we're going, we will be way outside the play-in. So we got to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I thought last night's game was actually a winnable game, right? In the first half, we were down 1 at the half. OG had 13 points, Cat had 12, Deuce had 10, and I really want to talk about Deuce today. Robinson, 6 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds. You know, they were energetic defensively, really engaged, came out with a sense of urgency. And then that fourth quarter, the Knicks shot 1 of 11 from the 3-point line. And listen, Phoenix didn't shoot well in that fourth quarter either. They shot 35% from the field, 22% from 3, and the Knicks said, "Hold my beer." And they went out and also shot 35% from the field and just 9%
Yeah,
from the 3-point line. OG was 0 for 3. Clarkson was 0 for 3, including a big 3 that could have closed the gap for us. McBride, who I thought was exceptional last night, was also 0 for 3 from 3 in that fourth quarter. Cat was 2 for 4, but he had an air ball 3. As a matter of fact, it was back-to-back air ball 3s from him and Deuce. I don't know who, was first. And then Bridges decides, all right, I'm gonna give y'all a little something in the fourth quarter. He was, he was 3 or 4, but it was a winnable game. But you got to make shots. Like you brought up, the Knicks had more offensive rebounds, I believe, than Phoenix, and they also out rebounded them overall by 10. But it's the timely offensive rebounds that they were able to
to
get,
get
and
yes,
that's what matters. And a lot of times, that's what separates the team that wins and the team from loses. They get timely stops, they get timely shots, they get timely offensive rebounds, they force a timely turnover, right? And
yeah.
that just wasn't something, we were able to do last night in that fourth quarter. Where do you want to go from here? We kind of take turns in terms of, who or what we want to take a look at. Where do you want to go from here? Next, I should say.
I know it might be a little bit controversial, but Mikhail, um, I don't think that he's given us enough at times. I think that let's take an overall stat, which just sounds crazy to me.
Mhm.
And I believe if I looked it up, I believe it's still true, where he has only been to the line like 4 times all year. That to me, it's I don't, you know what I mean? It's wild. If I remember looking up that like he's 4 or 6, something crazy where, you know, and
I'll
that
look
it
it up,
it
but
it
it's out.
goes to the low. Yeah, please look it up again here and see what's in it. But from the eye test, you know, the physicality point, it's part of the game. You know, getting foul calls. But when you shy away consistently from all contact and never put your shoulder into a guy and what's names and consistently always shooting fadeaways, that kind of hurts our team in a what's name bit. Um, and I just think that he's got to be more physical, even on defense. You know, I, believe me, I would like to see this guy be more handsy. I would like to see these guys crowd a guy's space. Alter a guy, knock him off at times. But numbers can be radically skewed. You know, I looked at the numbers even from last night. Yabusele was +8. How's that possible? The only two pluses were Deuce and him. But that's where you say context matters because we know, he scored 0 points, but Yabusele was once again not really a factor. So I just think that Mikal has, he's got to commit to it. Um, it's running from it. It doesn't it doesn't help the team. And I know that's just a small thing, but as we spoke, there's a lot of little small things that are going wrong that are adding up to the finality of these last, what are we, 2 for 10, so things like that. We everything's got to be examined. Everything's got to be on the table. Everything. The coach's decisions. I thought he held Clarkson in there, way too long. Clarkson is, definitely fourth quarter. But but the last few games, Clarkson has been so inconsistent that he's given us fouls, he's given us effort on defense, but as far as offensive, which is what we thought we were getting from him, we all were hoping for this at least 16 or 17 kind of average guy, or and a guy that something out of nowhere that could hit 30 on you. It's been very far few in between, and less, and dare I say, less than average. So that's just my take on it. But it's tough. It's tough. I just say it's tough.
Yeah. I want to piggyback off of Bridges. I have to say, I don't really have that's his game. And one of the things I try to do is not get on players for playing their game. I think that's Bridges. I think there was one season in his career, I think when he was in Brooklyn, where he had the ball in his hand a lot and he went to the line 7 times. But in Phoenix, 1.4 a game, 1.7 a game, 1.8 a game, 1.9 a game. Then when he got traded, it went up a little bit. And then now it's back to 1.4, and this season is 1.1. But the issue I have with Bridges is he was supposed to be our secondary ball handler and our secondary playmaker. And he hasn't been any of that, at least consistently. There have been games, particularly in the beginning of the season, when he was really like on this hot stretch. And I thought defensively he was all over the place, and 6 assists. And he still sometimes will give you good assists. But it was, you can get an assist by just passing it to the wing and that person takes a shot. Like, that's not really generating offense, right? Yes. But I thought earlier in the season, he was like really like generating offense. Like he had the ball in his hands. Brunson was playing off ball. And I said, yeah, this is what I envisioned for Bridges when he got here. And I see none of that. I see Bridges as someone who's content to just play within the flow of the game, no matter how the game changes, no matter if Brunson is out, no matter who's out. I need to step up. Deuce stepped up last night. I thought OG stepped up last night. And Bridges is just stocking shelves. Like, it doesn't matter what's happening in the front of the store. It could be on fire. There could be somebody holding up the store. He's still there stocking shelves. Like, nothing changes. Like, there's no urgency. And listen, when the Knicks gave up those 5 picks, I thought this was the Infinity Stone or close to it. I'm like, we got another defensive wing on the other side of Brunson, and we got OG, and he can handle, the ball. Brunson can play off ball a little bit. We can get some more playmaking. He's been in a position in Brooklyn, where he was that guy. So when you have the experience of being that guy, and now you're going to be the second or third guy, that means when Brunson goes out or Cat goes out, he knows what it is to step up and be that guy, because for a season and a half, that was him.
Yes.
He has been, in that regard, in terms of the playmaking and the secondary ball handling, a disappointment in my opinion. Now, when we play San Antonio in the Cup game and Castle and all of them put that pressure on, That's when I first saw that his ball handling was suspect against pressure. Against pressure. That's when I saw it. And that's when I was like, oh, wow. I don't know if he can be that, for us. Listen, the game before he took 20 shots, right? So he was much more assertive. I just feel he's a guy that's content. Now, this is the other point I want to make. Not trying to open up old wounds. He had an issue with Tom Thibodeau. And I think one of the reasons he had with Tom Thibodeau was because he wants to be super fucking casual. And Tom Thibodeau, you're not going to be casual. Tom Thibodeau was going to push you, particularly his top guys. Push you. He's going to play you. He's going to have high expectations. And Mikal Bridges had a problem with that. Right? He wanted to make it seem, and this is me, I'm reading into the situation, that the reason why he was struggling was because he was being tasked with being an a point of attack defender, which hasn't really changed, right? Until Deuce comes in. He's the point of attack defender. Oh, that was the reason. I'm playing a lot of minutes. That was the reason. What's the reason now?
Yeah.
What's the reason now?
Yeah.
You understand? He came out gangbusters and he has not been able to maintain. And if the Knicks are going to listen, when we thought about the Knicks as championship contenders, it was because Mikal Bridges was playing at a high level to start the season. And we were like, whoa, like if this is going to be Mikal Bridges, we might be able to do that this year. And then OG also was playing really, really good. And we were like, yo, I think since then, and we'll get into OG, who's been better of late the past 2 games, but we'll get into OG. But to stick with Bridges, he just hasn't been that. And now I'm starting to believe that maybe he's just not that. He just wants to play within the flow of the game, let it come to him. And he's content that way. He's not a guy that's going to step up when you need him to step up.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I've always said, football, as people would think, is, the physical. Football is a collision game. Basketball is the most physical game because it requires, physicality. And you talk about his handle. That's one of the reasons why when he comes up and tries to bring the ball up, and you get guys like how the Spurs did him, you have to also be physical. You can't shy away from it. You know what I mean? You have to brush a guy off of you. You have to put a shoulder into you. You look at Kolek. Kolek's doesn't have the greatest handle, but he has great physicality. He will stand in there. He will take that shot, and he will initiate the physicality.
Right.
So where things like that, and this is where I say on Mikal's game is that's why it's hard to really, judge what he could actually be, because he refuses to lean in at certain times to give that physicality. And it's tough to shy away from it, especially when things tighten down and, it comes down and let's be honest, in Mike Brown's system right now, it's extremely vanilla. There's not a lot of, we talked about emotion offense, where a lot of times there's not a lot of motion. So how are you going to get your baskets? You have to have a physical presence to you. And when you shy away from that physicality, I think it hampers the point of your game. And so this is where you see him struggle. And Tibbs is, we know Tibbs. What Tibbs is going, we just didn't have enough players in a certain, in a certain sense. Is that Tibbs' fault? Or is that Leon's fault? There's always going to be that back and forth. People are always going to have that, what side of it. But what he probably asked him was, hey, we need you to do more, So to me, these same guys have no problem asking for more money. With more money comes more responsibility. It's just the way that life works. It works that way at work. You know what I mean? It works that way at any job, typically, unless you're the president. But that's something else. We ain't gonna talk about that. Right. But basically is that, I don't want to harp, like you say, just grinding out Mikal. There's a lot of things going on. Brown,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Because Brown is Brown has got to he's got to be better. He's got to put more of emphasis on moving the ball, who's in there, who's together, these, these disconjointed lineups at times that we're looking at, and I get where you're trying to appease the front office, but sometimes as a coach, you got to put your foot down and say, hey, you know what I mean? Because anybody who takes a real step back and analytical look at, and not that Yabo's getting, a lot of minutes, but his minutes that he is getting, he's bringing nothing to the table. At this stage, we don't have that luxury. We need who's ever in there. If you in there for 30 seconds, I want to see you, punch a guy in the jaw, something. You know what I mean? But this guy, he's 265 and he plays like he's a feather. Like, he's like the what's the cartoon character where you see the hippo and he's in the tulip thing and he's, I I don't get it, but I really want Brown to put more emphasis how this offense looks. And if it is motion, please let's see more off-ball action. Our off-ball action is very stagnant, very stagnant. And right now we don't have, especially when we go 5 out, we do not have the 5 out shooters currently right now. Our 3-point percentage has dropped almost about from the beginning of the year, it's dropped about 6 or 7%. You can't sustain like that. I know 6% to 7% doesn't sound like crazy, but as far as stats wise on the other end, when you go from 121 to on the average down here, we're probably about at 108 now? That's staggering. Those are staggering numbers.
Let me ask you this though, because the Knicks are not playing in a vacuum, right? They're playing against other teams who know what they like to do and are probably trying to take this away. So how much of this is Brown's offense? How much of this is the players not executing it? How much of it is the defense taking some things away from the Knicks, and due to lineup changes, players being injured, they just aren't able to overcome what the team is trying to do. And I think that's something that I haven't been able to get a good read on, because we can easily say, oh, they're not cutting back door, but what are teams doing to take away the back door, right? So I think that has to be part of the equation as well. And then I also think when certain players are out, things just aren't going to move. Like, who's creating the advantage for the Knicks, right? We can complain about Brunson not passing, but when he gets into the lane, he does create an advantage, whether he's going to take the shot or whether he passes out. Should he pass out more? I think we will all agree he probably should pass out more, but he at least does create an advantage, right? When Town is in the post, he doesn't really command a double team because he's not really strong with the ball, in my opinion, all the time. And teams could probably just play him with one player. You understand? So so you're not creating an advantage. And then I do hear what you're saying in terms of when he does have the ball, there could be like back screens and things like that for cutters. So I do think that's a fair point. But the Knicks offense hasn't been great, but I think it's due to multiple things. And I think the defense has something to do with it as well. And kudos to the Knicks. I mean, Phoenix came in as the 4th best defense in the league. The Knicks were without, Brunson and Hart. And, I don't know if they held them to 106 or they just didn't shoot well and only scored 106. But I thought the Knicks came to play. And last night, they just wasn't able to hit shots. But let me know in the chat in terms of the offense, How much do you think it's Mike Brown not adjusting? How much do you think it's the players not executing? And how much of it is the other team? I will say this. I do think there are different things we can do to get Cat the ball in more advantageous positions. Now, what he does with it, because sometimes I swear it's so frustrating when he gets the ball and he's so loose with it. Like somebody taps him on the shoulder, it's flying out of his hand. Like he's any little bit of contact, the ball is coming out. Like to me, I feel like he's so loose with the ball. But I do wonder if there are other things we can do to get him the ball. I get him at the top of the key and how that creates spacing. But I just wonder if there were other ways we can get him in more advantageous positions. And to stay on Brown, and I do want to talk about Deuce Kncks, who I thought was phenomenal last night. Knick Nation, I know you're gonna have a problem with this, and I'm here for the smoke. Enough of the young players. Like I've just had I had enough. Like Diarra, I know it's Diarra, but I'm calling him Diarra. I've seen enough. I've seen enough. He was 1 of 4 last night. When he gets the ball, they intend. And this is what I'm saying about a team that is locked into the game plan.
Yeah.
Anytime he got the ball, they just let him shoot.
Yeah.
The Knicks, we play everybody the same. We over-rotate on everybody, whether they got a handle, whether they could get in the lane, whether they could shoot. Like we do the same thing. But whenever Diarra got the ball, have at it. You know, he was on the same side with Cat. Cat posted right there. He takes the 3. I'm like, yo, like that's not like. Be our energy guy. And I'm not saying don't take an open shot. So I don't want it to come across like that. But what I'm just saying is I feel sometimes when Diarra is in the game, he does too much. You know what I mean? You're just doing too much. So Kolek, to me, is just being overmatched, particularly last night by Goodwin and these physical players. Now, he gonna give it back now. He gonna, to your point, he's gonna be physical and give it back. But in terms of him being able to create offense for people, like once they're really physical with him, that kind of takes him out of what he does best: set up our offense, get in the key, generate good looks for people. He wasn't able to do that. I'm not a big plus minus person because I believe that context matters and who you're in the game with matters. But he was plus 17. Minus 17. Take it for what it's worth. I just don't think he's been good of late. And as much as we want to put this on Mike Brown, this is the mandate of the front office to get these guys time and to watch the minutes of our top players. This is the mandate from the front office. This is what they wanted. They wanted somebody who's collaborative and basically going to listen to them. And listen, Mike Brown was fine with it and he's doing it. So I'm not going to put it all on Mike Brown. Some of it is the front office, as well, taking a long-term view. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but these young players right now, in my opinion, are just not it. And we can't have it both ways. We can't be like, we need to develop them, and then when we lose because we're not getting the necessary contributions, we can't say nothing about them because they're young. It's both ways. If you in the lineup, you're contributing. If you're not in the, or be out the lineup. And we're not getting much from Kolek. We're not getting much for Diarra. I know it's Diarra, but I'm calling him Diarra. We're not getting much, much for him. The same thing for Yabu, just to piggyback off your point. That was a bad signing for the Knicks. And you could say it was just $5 million. But listen, the Knicks had the taxpayers mid-level exception to get a player that's going to significantly contribute in your rotation. And Yabu has not been that. I'm not going to get on him too much because he doesn't get a lot of minutes, but that was a waste of money. That was a waste of an opportunity to bring in somebody that could have helped the Knicks. And what I'll say about Clarkson, I didn't really expect him to be consistent because that's him. He's an inconsistent player. Even when he was on Utah, like he's just inefficient. He's inconsistent. But this is a tough one. Like he's not going to score those points because he just doesn't get the minutes. He gets anywhere from 16 to 20 minutes. I thought he was going to be a 25-minute a game player. You like when you bring these guys in, you know who they are.
Yeah.
You know who they are. Clarkson has been who he is, you know? And I just think you're making the decision you're going to rock with him or you're not. But this up and down, that. You rocking with him or you're not rocking with him. You know what I mean? So listen, Mike Brown overall has been fine. I'm not going to put, I'm going a little spiel here, Knick Nation.
Let's do your thing.
About the coaching.
You cooking, I'm with you.
I coached Division III women's basketball for 9 seasons. When it comes to NBA schematics, I can't help you. I don't know. I lean on Freezy. I lean on Knick Film School. I lean on those guys who understand NBA schematics, right? When it comes to the dynamics of coaching, I understand it because I was in that spot for 9 seasons. A coach is successful. There's so many things that goes into a coach having a successful season. And absolutely, the coach has to do their part in terms of motivating the player, game plans, adjustments, lineups, bench coaching, all of that, right? But the players have to perform as well. Injuries make a difference. It's a dynamic position. So I'm not somebody that's going to be like, when the team is playing well, oh, the coach is cooking. Oh, look at the coach. The coach is great. And then when things fall apart for various reasons, and the coach has a part of it as well, we're not looking at player performances. We're not looking at injuries. We're not looking at anything. Now Mike Brown is a bum and he should be fired. I think the coaching position is important. Don't get me wrong. It is definitely important, particularly in terms of schematics, adjustments, lineups, super and game prep. Super important. But it's important, but it's not everything. Coaching is not everything. So we can't be like, when we're great, Mike Brown is great. When we're not great, Mike Brown is terrible. Now, can coaches have terrible stretches? They can as well. A lot of Mike Brown is being outcoached. What's the evidence? So it can't be when we winning, he's outcoaching it can't be just based on the results that he's getting outcoached or not being outcoached. I think you have to know enough about the game, and I don't, the NBA game, to say, this is what the other team did schematically. This is the lineup change that the other team made. And this was the options that Mike Brown had, and he didn't go to any of them. Or when they did this, why didn't Mike Brown respond and do that? Then if you can get specific, and if there's those in the chat who understand the game this way and you can get specific about it, let me know. Because then I can say, yeah, he was outcoached. My point is, you have to know a lot about NBA basketball and schematics to say a coach was outcoached. It can't just be because we lost the game. Because he could have made the right calls and the team didn't execute it. True. How do we know? Unless you know it on that level, how do you know he was outcoached or not?
True. So
you understand? True. So yeah. I can't say that. I can't say that. Somebody in the chat who understands schematics, give me some specifics of how Mike Brown has been outcoached. I would love to hear it. I'm not saying he hasn't been. I'm just saying I don't know enough to pinpoint that that's been the case. I will say this. I think he was brought in to help our offense. He was brought in to have better to forge better chemistry between Cat and Brunson. That hasn't happened. he talked about when he first came in that he wanted to move Cat around and use him in all these different ways. That hasn't happened. So I can judge him like, this is what you said, and this is what, I don't see the results of that. But I'm not ready to say I'm never going to say Mike Brown is a bum, because I feel like it's like a NFL quarterback was Eli Manning, who I love, should be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. That's a different argument. Better than Tom Brady? No, he was not. But can you win a Super Bowl with Eli Manning if you put the right pieces around him? Absolutely. And that's how I feel about coaching. Like, there's some coaches, unless you put the dream team with them, you're not winning a championship.
Yeah.
But there are nuances to it. There are other coaches that if you put the right players around them, the right team around them, you can win with that coach. And that's what I felt that way with Tom Thibodeau. I saw his flaws. Do not get me wrong. But I just felt like even in that Indy series, we win that first game. We get back in transition when we turn the ball over. We hit open shots. We in the finals, despite Tom Thibodeau's questionable rotations and questionable schematics, right? Few other things this team does, we're in the finals. Same thing with Mike Brown. You can win a championship with Mike Brown if you have the right pieces around him. And I feel like that about many, if not most, NBA coaches. OKC won. Do you think Dagno coached a better series than what was the Indiana's coach? Carlisle? No, he did not. He did not. But the players came up in those big moments. Halliburton went down. They won a championship. You think Budenhauser is a great coach? No. But Giannis in game 6 or 7 dropped a 50-piece, and they were able to win it. You understand what I'm saying? So I think most coaches are good enough, depending on who you put around them. This is not all about Mike Brown where we are right now. I think it's too early to say we need to fire Mike Brown. That's my spiel. Knick Nation, you got the rest of the show.
Well, I'm going to respond, and I'm going to try to wrap it and put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
I think from what you said to the young players and then moving forward, we are still, it's going to sound weird at first, but I think I can bring it together. We are still in the loss to the Indiana Pacers. The response of what we did is from losing to them, in the playoffs 2 years in a row. So with that being said, then, how they beat us was with 11, 12 players. So the front office said, hey, we want to include more, and we want more people, and we want more of an inclusion. And as you heard Dolan say, Tibbs is stubborn, and he wasn't, for that. So to put it all in a better context, in a sense, we don't have the ability to do that in the same manner. And what they're doing is trying to do some of that in that manner. I don't think that will work. And the reason why I don't think that will work is because let's look at the age and the years of most of the Indiana players as opposed to the years of our players. A lot of our players who the significant players are, these guys got 7, 8 years, 10 years, 11 years in the league, 12 years in the league. To then take that system and say, here, I'm going to take these players boop, and plop you into that system. This is where the difficulty, I believe, lies. As opposed to young players, because when you're young and you grow into something, that's what you know. And then that's what you lean on. We do the same thing here now with Brunson. Brunson, that isolation, when things get crunch time, when things get tight, the reason why he goes to that is because that's what he knows. So with that being said, it's like, hey, does Mike Brown have the horses to pull off what he's being asked to do? Currently, as the better competition has grown through this season? We all know the answers to that right now. The results are no. Can he turn that around? I believe it is possible. I believe it is possible to iron out the wrinkles. I also, defensively, I'm not sure what their defensive actual scheme is. So it's tough to study that portion. The offensive portion, I have studied it. I have it in my email, and I will send you a link to it so
Yes,
you can
please.
see. Yeah, so you can look and see. It's quite interesting, and it breaks it down. It's particularly to his system and how it's run. So where you begin to see, the tendencies of what they do. But then that's why I say it's vanilla, because from the small points of what I have studied of it, it's like, oh yeah, you will be able to look and see that, oh yeah, this is exactly what they do. But then there's more to it. And then you say, well, oh yeah, we don't do that part. Oh yeah, we don't do that part. Oh yeah, we don't do that part. And we don't do that part. So with all that being said, collectively, we got a hot mess right now. Let's just say that's what it is.
We're not doing it. Like from watching the game, knowing what we're trying to do and watching the games, because those like yourself who are schematically inclined watch the game different. You see different things. Is it the Knicks not executing, or is the defense doing something to take that away?
I'll say it like this. When I was a young kid, I was fascinated by magic. So my father would take me to the magic stores and buy me the things. And then one of the first things you always understand in magic is don't look at what I'm doing. Look at other things that's around you and what you're not doing.
Mhm.
And that's basically what it is. It's the things that we are not doing as opposed to what we are doing. So, like I keep screaming about the other motion and the movement, it's because we're not doing that part. It's a motion offense. That means that there are in the real true motion offense, depending on what part you take out of it, when it's the 5 out, there's not a lot of motion. But what it is, it's a collective of offenses assumed together and created to be called a system. So there's part of the Princeton, part of it is in it, part of the UCLA is in it, part of the 5 out is in it. There's another part I can't remember. It's the double drag, which the double drag you see constantly. That is what you more see constantly when they become into it and they initiate it. You'll see that, especially if the game gets like a little tighter. That's just what you see. But without the other motion, because that's the initial point of it, and this is like a boring stuff to really talk about in that sense, but the initial point of it, when the offense initially starts and it starts up, that's basically where we are at with it. But once it gets cut off or complex, we don't have the other things implemented to do it. Now, is that IQ? Is that, what I mean? Is that coaching? Or is that the coach saying they can't master this yet? How can I move on?
That's a great point. Yeah.
So it's hard to really tell because we're not there at practice. We don't know the day to day. We can only go from what we read off of. And currently what we read off it looks like Mike is kind of putting it on like the IQ point of it, because he'll call out certain things and certain players. Would we be better off right now is saying, hey, you do know this point, but there's certain other little wrinkles that we must create for you. We all know Cat needs to be put into something else. There needs to be more done for him. That sitting at the top of the key has gotten old. Everybody knows it. The number one thing that starts to tell you that people know the system, turnovers. Last night, what was it, 17 turnovers. Turnovers come from physicality, and turnovers come from pressure, and turnovers come is because I know where you're going to be. I know what you're trying to do. So I'm going to cut those off. I'm going to put you in an uncomfortable situation, and then see and see what happens. And that's exactly what they did to us. And once again, 17 turnovers again last night. So you can't win turning over the ball and listening. And then what kind of to me that makes Mike Brown's system go, and right now we don't have the horses for that, is players that get downhill. The two best players that get downhill were on the bench. You know what I mean? Recovering. OG looked like a world beater the game before. Why? Because he was getting downhill. Once you begin to get downhill in their system, it cracks open everything. Currently, right now, we don't have the players, the horses, to get downhill. On defense, though, I'm struggling with that because, like I keep saying, proximity matters. These guys are pros. You can't be an arm's length away from a pro, let alone 2, 3. You got to crowd a player. You got to bump him off his direction. Oh, yeah, I know that play's coming. I know that curl's coming. Not today. I'm going to cut it off. Let me see what you do. You know what I mean? Let me test the waters. Are you prepared to go backdoor? You know what I mean? Are you prepared to, to stagger the screen? Yeah. Are you prepared to stagger the screen? You know what I mean? I see the pin down coming. We looked at, like we said, we talked about the Detroit game, the Sixer game. They did it to us 4 or 5 times in a row. Same pin down. We couldn't stop it. We didn't have and that told me when you saw from the first half, he spoke to us about the second half where he knew that the plays were coming and we still couldn't do it. We tried to adjust to it. We still couldn't do it. So that tells me that, hey, they don't know on defense that this same place that, hey, and let's be honest, it's a copycat league. You can't stop it. Here it comes again, buddy. You can't stop it. Here it comes again, buddy. And when you think you got it, I'm going to change the version.
Coach, though, or is there an adjustment? I said, where's the adjustment from the coach, or is there an adjustment in game?
There is an in-game adjustments on it that they showed that they tried. But the problem is they're putting Cat in that situation a lot of times. And what it is that Cat is not really good at saying, hey, I'm going to have a foot in the paint and then try to get out at that 3-point line. So what they do is that, first of all, what it is he's not going to be able to do that anyway. There's a person, because that's what they call it, right? It's a pin down. So at that pin down, the person who is pinning, let's just say, for example, Cat, McHale, whoever it may be. This is them here. The person's behind this. He's sitting here waiting. That pass initiated. It gets behind that player. Boom. Shoots the 3. I could send you a video on that where they broke that down as well. I can send you those videos as well too. Yeah. It is fascinating to look at it. I just don't know exactly what kind of defense we're exactly running because it's sporadical at times. And then they throw the wrinkle in, when we go to zone. And then sometime when we go to zone, it's like, why did we go to that? Clearly these teams are shooting and they shoot us right out of it because, we're not linked. We're not linked like that, as far as defensively, there's that. And it also has to do with verbiage. It's wild to see that Kolek was coming in at times and calling out the defense, where you're looking at, why is he calling it out? I mean, I get that the point guard is the leader a lot, but a lot of times on defense, it's typically your center. Right. So I think it's a lot of education that they're trying to teach these players. And I don't know if it's being perceived well. You look at the difference.
Perceived in the sense that they're not buying in to what he's trying to do.
That's the part where I'm struggling with too, is if they're trying to buy in or they don't have the IQ to be able to pick up the system that fast.
And that was the issue last year as well, when people were talking about how our defense was so vanilla, and there were some who would say, but if you can't pick up the basics, how are you going to have a more, evolved defense?
Yes.
So that's what I'm hearing you saying. Is that mostly on the defensive end, or you're saying it both offensively and defensively?
On both.
on both.
On both sides of the ball. And as you can see, we're struggling with it. And it doesn't work out. And currently, especially when you would think we would be better sometime in a too big system, but the too big system, the way that his defense is called, it makes it worse because these guys can't get there. Mitchell Robinson used to have that quick, ankle, recovery speed. He just, he's still a great guy for what he can do. He's still an anomaly for the rebounds that he does. But as far as having the ability to get out there, what's name like he did a couple of years ago, he doesn't have it. It's that currently right now. I don't know if that ankle will ever, get back to that, but he doesn't have it. You could tell he doesn't have that same push factor, that same quickness. This guy used to almost have a foot in the paint and still block your shot at the 3-point line.
Right.
So those days may be over for him. He's learned to still be, a good player. He's still learned to be, fascinating still as far as a rebounder for what he can do. But overall, this system, we are struggling with the system right now. And I personally think that Brown and Cat are this way.
Yeah. I peeped that early in the season, though. But we were rolling, and I probably sounded like a Debbie Downer at that point. But it felt like, something is off between those two. Cat from the very beginning. I'm still trying to find my role, and every time in these post-game interviews, whenever I get an opportunity, I just try to impact winning. He says that all whenever I get an opportunity. And listen, right or wrong, whether it works out in the end or not, Cat is not a featured guy on this team. He's just not featured. He's just going to get it how he gets it within the flow of the offense. If it flows to him, it flows to him. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He's not featured. That doesn't mean he doesn't get touches. That doesn't mean he doesn't, get shots. I just don't get the sense that he's featured. There's some games when there are other players taking much more shots than Cat. Now, whether that's Cat being non-aggressive, not putting up those shots, whether he's choosing when he gets those touches to pass it and instead of shooting it, that could be it. It just really looks different in terms of him in this offense. And it's going to take time for Cat. We 40 games. It's half the season now.
Yeah. So this is who it is. This is who he is.
Yeah, it is. And I think Cat is getting scapegoated too. I mean, listen, a lot of players and coaches are not performing well during this stretch. And all we hear about is Cat. Little bit of Mikal, little bit of OG. JJ gonna make sure we keep OG. We keep conversation when it comes to players not performing, but a whole lot of Cat, not enough of JB either. A lot of Cat. I do want to say to your point about our offense, people keep saying we still have the number 3 offense. We still have the number 3. Okay, that's overall. But over this 10-game stretch, our offense is 16th in the association. Our defense is 29th in the association. And I'm someone that doesn't believe if the Knicks offense is clicking that they need to be a top 10 defense, but you can't be 29. Yeah. You can't. And the net rating is 25 over this stretch.
Yeah,
25.
it's bad.
We're just not a good team right now in any respect. We're not a good team. And the other thing we don't talk about enough is it's not like we're out there giving the same energy and showing up and there's urgency and we're losing. Like, this team looks flat. Now, they looked a bit more perky, last night. But for the most part, over this stretch, and let me know what you see, they seem flat energetically. Is that a mental thing? Is that a physical thing? They just seem flat.
Combination of both. because once you wear down physically, it affects you mentally. And if your mental point is there, your focus is off. So they're struggling right now on both ends. I think they're searching for answers. Guys are trying to alter their game a bit. And once you begin to try to alter certain things, it just becomes a bad domino effect and it starts going the other way.
But why are they out of it though? They play every other. They play every other game. I'm just comparing them to last season when our top players logged much more minutes than this. And listen, there have been times when Mikal and OG has had to play 39 minutes, 38 minutes, 36. Nothing like last year. Up to this point, the rotation has been stretched a little bit more. Why do you think they're worn out? Are they playing that much faster?
No.
That's what's wearing them out. Like, what do you think that is? That
I besides being this horrendous schedule of back-to-backs, I haven't been able to put my finger on that, because when we start looking at the minutes, a lot of these guys are, their minutes are lessened in some degree. And the only difference where we can see is the system, but who then maybe the load was just carried more. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. Brunson carried the load so much more last year. He's carrying so much less this year. OG has been more offensively aggressive this year, So, we have to look at that. It's tough being a two-way player. Mikal, I'm not sure why he is, but he looked tired. He don't look like that same energetic guy who was blitzing around and running around and taking his player and losing his player and 6 feet away from any guy even coming anywhere near him. The last points of now, but that also has to do with the point of the system, because we were getting wide open 3-point shots in that corner in the beginning of the year. Right now, man, these guys are on you out of balance. So, what it is, I just think that I think it's hard too. I think it's like, let's say if you got 1 or 2 players that they don't understand, in a sense, of what that is. You're only as strong as your, as your weakest link in that chain. So what do? Coaches are caught in a place of like, we're 6'7". What do you do with that? Do I then try to advance the class along, with these other, students struggling here? Or do I pull the class back and say, until we can all graduate and move forward? And that's, to me, what it seems like. There is a struggle, because you can't tell me that they want to just keep the way, because if we see it as regular people, you know what I mean? As regular fans, we see it. We see the same stagnation, the same plays, the same players. I look at people, because I told somebody this the other day, because they were trying to, come at me. I said, do you realize there are people who are paid tens of millions of dollars to break that game down and to study that? Absolutely. And to show and what's name here? So if you think that we can see it, they see it. And right now, they've seen it. It's too vanilla. When.
But that's why we brought him in, though, because that was the criticism of Thibodeau, the vanilla offense. So now, is this just an indictment of the players now, that maybe both coaches are coming to the conclusion that they can't really run advanced offense? Or do you think this is just the players not buying in or not executing?
I think it's that. I think most of the players have given it their best and are trying, and they know that it's a struggle. And eventually, they've probably all been told this. You are going to see this point where we struggle. Mike Brown did say it, but then you're hoping that they come out, on the other end. But right now, it's poor performance due to both parties. I'm not gonna, exonerate the players. I can't exonerate the coaches. Right now, it is a disgusting storm, and we've got to figure it out. But usually, when teams go into bad funks like this offensively, It's where you lean on your defense. We not have. I'm not sure we have the horses.
That's what I'm trying to say, Nick Nation. How can we lean into our defense? This team wasn't built to be a defensive team. Now, can we be better? Absolutely. Are we at our defensive ceiling? Even this team, we are not. So I don't want anybody to confuse that. But the front office put this team together. They put together an offensive team. In the offseason, they brought in Yabu, they brought in Clarkson. Offensive players.
Mistake.
Right? So basically what they're saying is, we're going to have a dominant offense and we're going to have an adequate defense. So if you want to say that we haven't leaned into our defensive ceiling, I would agree with that. But I don't know if this is a team that's going to be. What do you think of the defense?
Well, we look at it like this. Last year, let's just take, because we just played the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns were a poor defense last year.
They were.
Phoenix defense right now, I believe, is rated number 4. Right? With that reading and just that fast. So to me, it's more of the ideology of it, is to say, hey, I'm going to be physical with this guy. I'm going to keep a hand on him. But that's part of the coaching, and that's part of the coaching scheme, to say, hey, you know what? Like we all listened to it even last night. Those guys are handsy. They push it to see the officials to say, hey, this official, like, hey, this guy's getting away with this. And officials like, this is the normal way that they play. They get stats as well. They look and they see these games as well. So with that being said, I got to lean back at the defensive coach and say, hey, his principles are not there. I personally think that we need those. I personally think we need to crowd these guys and to knock these guys off their course. Because currently, right now, we're just in a bad position to funk. So,
right, but also though, I get the scheme part, crowding them, being physical, but do we have those players? I mean, I think Phoenix identity turned around. You bring in somebody like Dylan Brooks. Goodwin last night, that mask, I don't know if that was wrong with his nose or that was just an indication of this is how I'm showing up today. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So those guys, like, they're physical guys. That's how they play. That's just who. I don't know Goodwin that well, but it seems like that's just who he is. Do you think you can take players who that's not really who they are and make them that, or do you have to bring in those types of players?
I think you got to bring some of those in, because if you're not coaching them up to be that, that's right there's your problem. You look at, like you say, with the he had his mask on, and he played against Kolek last, and he said to himself, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna shut this kid down. And he took it he takes it personally.
Right.
He took that to his heart and say, yeah, I'm gonna him. And that's not what we do. It's just not what we do. I mean, I when you play a team, you know what I mean, and then you play them again, you can see, you know what I mean, what this guy did to me last time or this or that. And I'm not gonna allow it. I'm going to get over that screen. I see the screen coming. You know what I mean? I'm going to lean past it. I'm going to do my best. If I do come up under, I'm going to give him some physicality, some body, some bumping. That's not where our game is. Our game is more so, we take bad angles. Like you said, Diawara got cooked last night. Giving up in the baseline on things like that. Groundbreaking principles that, as a coach, that's the first thing you're going to say to somebody is, hey, you can't give them the baseline because your help's not there. Right. You're going to force them back to the middle. Why? Because your help's there. That's just the way the game is. But, you're not going to give an open line down the baseline. And this is what they did a couple of times consistently last night. Plays like that, it makes me question what your defensive principles are. Right now, I currently don't understand what his defensive principles are. I wish I did know so that I could lean into it and study and understand more. But currently right now, even though they did better, let's be honest, you know what I mean? They mucked that game up, you know what I mean? Which I appreciated, You know, it's because that's what I thought our only chance was to win that game, was to muck that game up, you know, and maybe somebody at the end, you know, maybe hit a couple of points, a couple of what's names here. But like you said, we threw some air balls right into the ocean.
We were 1 of 11 in that fourth quarter. You're just not gonna, and that was a winnable game. And we needed some timely shots too. I mean, Clarkson, we was on a little run. Clarkson had that 3. If he would have knocked that down, not only would we have cut more into the lead, but just the energy, would have picked up. Yeah, we just didn't, have it. And I do, context matters. We were without Hart, we were without Brunson, but it was still a winnable game.
You know how you say stuff sometimes? I don't care who we're out. We got to play to win. They were without Green. You know what I mean? He's a young, dynamic player himself. So, and a borderline star himself. I think it's a superstar, but borderline star himself. And we just, there's, I hate to say this because, like you say, a lot of us were tired of the Tibbs Act. But there is one thing is, like I'll say, is you do take on the personality of your coach, and we had more grit last year. So when Brunson wasn't in, that was how we won some of those games, because our coach made sure that, hey, you put that grit on first. The other part comes second. The grit comes first. Yeah. And right now, we ain't got no grit at all. No grit, we're pretenders. We're pretenders at the grit right now, pretenders at it. And we need to be better. These guys got to take it personal.
That's a great point. I wonder if is there something to that, like the trickle down effect, because somebody says, and I'm going to get to the chat as well about whether or not the Knicks as an organization has a championship culture, if everybody is on the same page. And I think they are, but what page are you on? You know what I mean? And this is the thing with collaboration. I do think it's important. I do think it was important. And I'm not here to say Thibodeau should not have gotten fired. You lose the locker room, you lose the front office. There's no communication. Like, it's untenable. You just can't. That's even before we even get to lineups, execution, before we even get to adjustments. You can't operate like that. There has to be communication from every level. But now you get into what's the line between this collaboration between the front office and the coach, as you talked about. How much are they? Somebody told me that Mike Brown is giving minute reports to the front office. I don't know how true that is, but somebody said, he's giving minute reports to the front office. Maybe there's things he probably would not have done if it wasn't for, I call it a mandate, but whatever they want him to do, maybe he would do things, a little different. Is he feeling like his hand is tied just a little, just a little bit? I don't know. But right now it's winning time. And if they're very collaborative, he might need to sit down with them and saying, listen, until we get this back on track, this is where I feel like we need to go, because collaboration works both ways.
Oh, yeah. So, even last night in his press conference, I'm just one of those people who pick up tendencies. So Mike Brown has a little bit of a speech impediment. And last night, because it shows when he's stressed after losses. And if anybody's looking to hear it, you could hear it. It's like a little bit oxygen gets caught in his throat as he begins to talk. Last night, it's like I didn't hear it. So that kind of tells me that, either he knows something or he's becoming comfortable with some of these losing ways. And, or either that or he's fully understand that he may not have the horses to do what he needs to do. And let's be honest, this was a bad setup to bring in a coach. And you talk about mandates. The ultimate mandate was you have to be at the championship.
Right.
And to me, that's tough. We look at 3 Hall of Famers when
Nolan
they came
doubled
together.
down on that in his interview
Exactly.
on WFAN.
Exactly. What made it worse? You know what I mean? Let's look at 3 Hall of Famers that came together. You know that I'm taking my talents down. You know, to Miami. Did those guys win in the first year because they were in that what's name one of the and arguably one of the greatest coaches to ever play this game? You know, and Eric Spoelstra. No. So to put that kind of pressure on a guy and to tell your fan base to have that kind of expectation, that's that's tough because now once it comes back at us, we're all like, you know, where are we? You know what I mean? We're 6th, 7th place. We're after last night, you get bumped down pretty quickly, you know.
One game out of the maybe one game out of the play. But don't you think this is part of, and we're going to get to the chat, I promise. You okay? You have time?
Yeah, no, I got time.
And we're going to get to the
football
chat.
don't come on until 1 o'clock, right? 1 or 3, whatever. So we got time.
There is somebody in the chat said about everybody being on the same page. There might be a little slight impulsiveness in this organization. Or maybe not impulsiveness, not understanding what it takes to win. You know? So Thibodeau was a bad example because he was not, like, the communication just wasn't there. It's untenable. So he's a bad I think he's a bad example. But you know, we on this little hot streak, Dolan out there giving out basketballs because he's riding high in the street, talking about how we're gonna win in 1 year. Like, do you understand what it takes to win a champion? Like, do you really understand it?
I don't think he does.
Right. You know, we should have beat Indiana. We didn't beat Indiana. The coach has to go. I'm sure that was part of it. The other stuff with Tibbs, fair. I'm not arguing that, but I think that was part of it. We should have went further. We didn't. We got to make a change. You know, we winning, we great. Let me go outside and give out basketballs. You know, let me go in the thing. And the coach has been here. This is his first year. The mandate is that we win a champ. Like, do you understand that winning a championship is a process? How many teams have won a championship, even with great talent, in 1 year? And you can argue this is the second, you know, this is the second year with this core, but it's a new coach. You know, so I just sometimes I feel like the organization doesn't quite understand what it takes to win it.
It's you know, I mean, this is New York. There's so much politics that actually influences, you know, unlike other teams, this is different here. You know, the pressure to play here, the media that's on you, you know what I mean? Catch used to having 2 guys in Minnesota at the interview. You walk into a room of 20 reporters, 25 reporters, you know, that's a total different thing. You walk into that's the thing that makes you laugh is that, you know, once I was told that and, you know, explained that a little bit is that they literally have reporters because when you're here in New York, you may have a reporter from China. You may have a reporter from Italy. You may have a reporter from France. It's different. You know what I mean? So what we see, we don't see it all, but that's part of it. So it's totally different once you get here to this, you know. And another thing is that the people that we bring in a lot of times, you know, we look at it on other teams. Where's the high flying exceptional athlete on our team? Who would you pick out to call that on our team? I could almost pick that out on every other team, but on our team, you know, it gets tough. We're a guy who is that, you know what? This guy, you got to treat him this way, or you got to stagger him this way, or he's just great at getting downhill, or great at this, or great at that. You know, besides, let's take Brunson out of the category. Who else is great or been great at that? I'm struggling to find it. I know that we're paying a guy $53 million to be that guy, But are we catering to that guy? Are we putting him to his best advantage? Right now, I don't think so. Right now, I think we're trying to take a square peg and put it into a round hole, and it's just not working.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Let's get to the chat because I think
Sure.
there's some comments in the chat that's going to bring up some of the other things that I had in my notes, including Deuce, who we didn't get a chance to talk about just yet.
Yeah.
JJ, why are we guarding Booker with Clarkson in the fourth? Maybe because Wingstop doesn't actually stop anyone. I mean, listen, I agree in terms of them being more physical, but they're also being picked off. Like, this is not just one-on-one, no picks, nothing. They're being picked off as well. So it has to be team defense. Like, what's happening when they're picked off? First of all, they're getting skinny trying to go, trying to go over the screen. How is their screen navigation? But then also, what's happening when they do get screened off with the rest of the team? And let me
I
tell
think
you, when they get screened off, it's one pass and a three. It's not even like multiple things need to happen because the Knicks are rotating, so they have to move the ball multiple times. No. Go ahead.
I think what he's talking about is, I kind of honed in on that last night. Clarkson, when he was DNM, them, it's not that he was getting, going through screens or what's names. It's that he had Booker for quite a bit of time. Then right at that last seconds, he got 3 fouls very close at the last second, right before he was in shot, because he was undisciplined and did that lean in or that smack right at the end. And Booker's a superstar. He's going to get that call. You know what I mean? This guy is a superstar. He's not a star. He's a superstar. He's going to get that call. And sure enough, he got those calls. And those points were critical at times because what did it do? It put Booker right back to the line. And Booker don't miss much at the line. The guy's close to an 89% free throw shooter or something like that. This is guy, you know what I mean? So I think that's what that comment was about, is that maybe somebody else should have been in there, you know what I mean, who could have been a little bit more disciplined. But I hate to say it, all of our guys can disappoint us at that point in time because you're trying to do your best to stop this guy. These guys are, pros. They're trying to slip in, you're trying to pull his shorts, snag their shirt, any little thing you can. But I think that's what that was about last night in the fourth quarter because he picked up, I think in the fourth, he picked up 2 fouls, if I remember right. And earlier he had picked up maybe 1 or 2 with the same thing, undisciplined, right at the last point, fouled.
JJ, this team will have a tough time winning one round come playoffs. I mean, this version of the team, the way that we've been playing over the past 10 games, might not even make it to the playoffs. I just don't think this is our ceiling, and I could be so off. I just don't think this is our ceiling. I think we're a better team than we're playing now. But yeah, if you're talking about this particular team, how we're playing, no. David Smith, Mike Brown also lost the locker room with Kings, throwing DeRozan and Fox under the bus. He needs to go. I think it's too early to talk about firing Mike Brown. Listen, every coach is different. That's not something I like about. I tweeted it out right away when he talked about Cat and how he showed the play at half. I didn't like it, but every coach is different, and it seems like this is a consistent part of him.
Yeah, it's a bit. I think you got to measure the player when you know what I mean, when you start to get comfortable enough and know that player personally. And it's more received where it comes directly from the coach and not out to the media. And I don't think that Cat is that kind of player where you should do that to him. I just don't think. I think you should have a private conversation with him, door closed, one-on-one. I don't even think you should do it in front of the other players because I just don't think he has that. I don't think he has that characteristic of, I'm not going to call him soft because that's not what soft is. I just don't think that he has the mental makeup to be able to handle that with the rest of how his life is as well. I just don't think he has it.
And then I also think as a coach, you got to put that work in with a player and build that relationship before you do something like that.
I agree.
Because when you build up that relation, you can say whatever you want to say, because they know where you're coming from. They have that relationship with you. And I don't think he's been here long enough to do that. Freezy used the word cachet. He doesn't have that cachet to do that. And then the other thing to keep in mind is even when you're doing it to another player, the other players see that. Right? And so sometimes, and I'm not saying I don't believe Mike Brown has lost this locker room at all. I don't believe it. But it's not just the player you're saying things about. Other players see you saying things about that player, right?
I think losing, when you start consistently losing, images, things, other questions begin to creep in. That door begins to crack in. And then, there's a lot of things that begin to load up with that because, you might be a player and say, hey, I gave it my all, and we still lost. You know what I mean? So I think there might be some of that. And what cures that is winning. So we got to find a way.
Dwayne Dennis, 8086. This team is in major trouble. No cap, no sugarcoating this. Yeah, 25-17. David Smith, Knicks going to have to make a major decision. They either fire Mike Brown or trade Big Cat, I guess he's trying to say. I don't think Mike Brown is being fired. I don't even think he's being fired at the end of this year. If the Knicks miss the playoffs, maybe, but I think it would have to take something monumental for him to be fired. But Leon Rose better watch out. Because if Dolan feels that this team should do better, it wouldn't be beyond him to fire the front office and bring in another one. Ujiri, is that his name? Masai Ujiri? He's out there. And Dolan, wasn't he trying to pull him or pry him away from Toronto at one point? So I think Leon Rose may be the one in trouble. And this is the thing, though. If you bring in a new regime, they're going to want to bring in their own.
Yeah.
Getting way ahead of ourselves. But my point is, I don't think Mike Brown is going to get fired after one season.
I don't think he'll get fired. And the reason why I don't think he'll get fired is because then it turns and it looks like, Leon, it's you.
Right.
And I think for that political reason alone, it won't happen. I think, you know what I mean? If we get a fast exit out, I just think there'll be a huge shakeup in the locker room during the summer.
Right. And then again, this is not Mike Brown's team. He inherited this team. Like, you have to give him an opportunity to get his type of players in the door. And maybe these are not his type of players. JJ Clarkson has always been inconsistent. Why are you surprised? Okay. He's been one of the most efficient. Yeah, we talked about that. Paris Doug, appreciate you rocking with us this morning. Brown has to be better, but he can't have better effective ball movement with low skill ball handling and low passing skills. I mean, who's the secondary ball handler on this team? Who's the secondary playmaker on this team? But it looked good for a minute, though, with these same players, East Blue Drew, I'm starting to think dudes found out they're about to be traded and just stopped caring. Okay. Jamrock always, the ball movement was there in probably the first 10 to 15 games or so. Okay. My boy Deuce been cooking. Deuce has been cooking. Deuce, I felt the past two games with Brunson out, Deuce really stepped up his game. I think Mitchell Robinson, to your point, he may not be the same defensive player he was in the past, but I feel like we're getting what he has night in and night out, at least of late, right? So I thought he stepped up, and I think OG stepped up these past two games in terms of just being more aggressive, knowing we need points and things of that sort. But Deuce shooting, his aggressiveness, his confidence, he's looked the same throughout. Now, his shooting has gotten better as the season has gone on, but in terms of his approach to the game, his energy, it's been the same. Like, I haven't noticed any change in Deuce and maybe Brunson. We may not defensively, yes, I have noticed that.
Yes.
But I mean, in terms of their approach to the, I haven't noticed much difference in those two guys. And I love the way they used him last night. He, in my opinion, he's best off ball. He brought the ball up the court. He got the ball to Cat, or he got the ball to a wing. He went off ball to do his thing. Now, I was going at, somebody called me out on Twitter. I think it was Lexicon. Shout out to him. He listens to the show sometimes. Clearly not all the time. He listens to the show sometimes, and I appreciate him, you know. And we disagree on this. Deuce is not a point guard, and Deuce is not a better table setter than Jalen Brunson. However, he doesn't have to be. He doesn't need to be. In what Deuce does, he is doing it better than probably anybody else on this team doing what they do, right? Deuce has been it. You know what I mean? I just love his aggressiveness. I love, I can't say enough about his shot making. And throughout the season, Deuce has always made big shots for us in timely moments. Wasn't great last night, 0 for 3 in the fourth quarter, but he wasn't the only one. An air ball in the fourth quarter, he wasn't the only one. You got to call both sides. You can't just say, oh, he was great, and not talk about, when he wasn't great. Goodwin got, did some of his stuff on Deuce as well. But overall, Deuce has been solid all season, and these past 2 games, to me, seemed like him and Mitch was an OG, only ones out there like just trying to will this team. I thought Cat was decent last night as well, but Cat's fouling and him being loose with the ball is one of the most frustrating things.
100%
for me. But Deuce was, as they say, the Deuce was loose last night. He was really good.
For sure. Deuce was, I'll say it like this, because you named them. Those are our 2 longest tenured players. And the 2 of them have been very consistent. For what Mitchell Robinson does, he's been consistent. This is what he does. He gets his rebounds, 10, 12, 19, 14, what's names, whatever changes you put them through, they adapt and they move on. What I love about Deuce is, to be honest, and I ask everybody to look at it, his shot chart. The guy could shoot all over the court. He's scoring all over the court. He'll lay a point to the basket, teardrop inside, take you back out at the 3, hit the point in the mid-range. He is scoring on 3 levels right now, and that makes him dangerous. But it also makes him extremely hard to guard, because once he comes off that ball, and where is he going to be at? The guy's moving all over. That's what we want to still see, and this is what we thought. Well, how you see Deuce's shot chart is what we thought that's what was going to be happening with Cat. And for some reason, like they say, he's got the hardest job, but I just, like you said, we just think we're pushing him into a peg he shouldn't be in. But if you look at Deuce's shot chart, and how he's getting to the basket, where he's dropping those tears at, how he shoots those threes, timely baskets, timely steals. Without him last night, we are wiped out that game. This game isn't even close. So he steps up, you know what I mean? And the big thing about him, when it sometimes gets tight, Deuce is not scared to take that shot.
Absolutely.
A lot of our players tighten up, and all of a sudden their arms get short. They all of a sudden they got little turtle arms, and and they're not willing to go at it. And to me, that is one of the reasons why I kind of harp about Mikal, is that when it gets tight, he's got to be more physical at points in time. So just to even get yourself free, you got to be physical. Just to even push a guy off to get, what I mean, to bring him around that screen or something like that. You got to be physical at some point. And I think this, it's tough. Like I said before the show, we're all detectives and we're all trying to figure it out. And right now it's just a hot mess.
Right. but Deuce has been consistent. Yeah, for sure. All right. Bag of, oh boy, what is that? Bag of bean.
Bag of
Ooh,
bean hoodie.
bag of bean hoodie.
Bag
All
of
right.
bean hoodie or something.
We're gonna go with that. We appreciate that. Kings fan here. Sabonis and Mike had the same similar beef he has with Cat. I'm watching you this morning because Mike is the ultimate problem. I mean, he did well that first year, and then he was fired the second or the third year. I think it was the third year, right?
It was the halfway between the second year, was it? I thought.
Wow.
Right? I thought it was like
Somebody
half
let me
between the
know if he
second.
was fired in the second or third year. Had similar, yeah. I mean,
David, tell us. David will tell us.
yeah, he's a cocky like coach. He gonna say what he want to say. He's gonna challenge you. He's gonna, yeah. I didn't know that. Thank you for helping us. For saying that.
Yeah.
There was something else. Make it make sense. We are going to have to try to switch on defense because navigating screens is not working. Okay. All right. Keith Turner, I'm not paying Mitchell Robinson. No way I'm extending a guy that can't even get me 6 points. He got to go. That's not his game. Like, here we go. Issues with Deuce because he's not a point guard. Issues with Mitchell Robinson because he's not a shooter. Are they doing what they do to the best of their ability? Now, to me, not signing Mitchell Robinson, and we've talked about this before, has nothing to do with the points for me. It's all about the salary cap and availability and those sorts of things. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Knicks do. David Smith, Deuce getting more field goal attempts than Cat lately. Writing is on the wall for Cat. I mean, I think Deuce is being aggressive, and he's shooting unworldly. Like, some of these shots are like contested shots that he's still knocking down.
Yeah, he's got one of the best strokes in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That high arch is on point.
Yeah, rebuild NYK. Deuce is where Bridges is supposed to be. Okay. R.D. Barn. I'm not that down on the Knicks right now. Wow. I need some of that. I feel like something's growing in the background and they will figure it out soon. But this offseason needs some moderate changes. Yep. Wiz BK LA, the Queen always said, even when Deuce first got minutes and was missing, he never hesitated on taking. He came in with confidence. Aurora. Now let me stop. Aurora reminds me of that too. Super confident when he gets on the floor. I mean, you can't really knock him for that. Though sometimes I do. Yeah, Brown believes in his style of basketball, absolutely, and you got to get him the players. If he believes these players are not the players that can run his system, I think the front office owes him at the trade deadline and the offseason to get him this type of players. Okay, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, because a lot of people say they wanted to, don't want to disrupt the team, but hey, if we're not a team currently as we are, constructed, you might as well do it now.
Right. Knicks Nation 1127. We have moved too far away from the identity that started us on these playoffs run. 8 of 9 rotational players have maxed out their NBA potential. There is no leap coming, and there is no upside in them.
Ooh.
I mean, you could say as far as our core players are concerned, but I mean, that's what happens when you have veterans who've been in the league 6, 7, 8 years. They're pretty much at their ceiling, right? That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
I can't say that because I can't indict them yet in this system. It's still too new for them. Because when, like anything else, you get comfortable, when you first go into a job, you get to the office, you're still trying to figure out how to get in the building. So, once you get a little bit more comfortable, maybe.
in terms of the system, but in terms of them as players, I do think our core players are at their ceiling. Now, I'm not saying they can't acclimate to this system and play better, but does OG have more to his game in terms of growing his game? Does Bridges have more to his game in terms of growing his game? Does Brunson have more to his game in terms of growing his game? Does Cat have more to his? I mean, these guys, in terms of their own individual development, may be at their ceiling. That doesn't mean they can't get more out of Mike Brown's system. So I think kind of that's what I thought he was saying, that the players themselves were at their ceiling.
Well, that's tough to say because let's look at Hart. Wes Hart, a 10-year veteran, right? And this year he's grown as far as in shooting. He's looked so much better. Deuce is Deuce is considered a veteran. To me, he's grown so much as a shooter. So it's hard to just lock in and say what's the. I mean, we're not winning, so everybody's going to have a disparaging, things to say about them. But I'm not willing to go that far yet. I think within the point of the system still, and as far as a player, but I think the two work, are symbiotic. The better you become, the more comfortable you become in the system, the more you better look as a player. So I think it's a symbiotic relationship. And at this stage, the symbiotism is not there yet.
It's not. I don't know how much better any of these players are going to get, though. And I'm not that sold on Josh Hart's shooting either, because he came in when he first came to us, at the trade deadline, he shot like 50% from three and then regressed back. So he's shooting better now. I'm going to wait and see. Is this just a nice stretch for him, or is he going to?
I think inside the arc, inside the arc, he's shooting better. To me, that I see. He's shooting better off the dribble. He's shooting better inside the arc. I'm not even counting his 3-point shots. But to me, it's his mentality. When he comes mentally focused to put out offense, we look so much better because he then becomes a scorer. And once he becomes a scorer more, it makes us that much harder to guard. Because once he's getting us his 15, 16, 17 points, which is more than enough, we're not asking him to be a world beater of 20, 25. We're not asking him to be it. We're asking you to get that 16 so that you are at least respected, And a lot of times when he turns it off is when it makes it tough on us because he turns to force it off mentally. And when he turns it off mentally, that's tough because then all of a sudden he's not looking at the basket, That's where you get frustrated. Just the same as how people get frustrated with Mitch because a lot of times, it depends on where Mitch catches that ball at, if he even is going to look at the basket at times. But let me tell you something. If Mitchell Robinson ever took 3 or 4 dribbles and just went and dunked, we would all be like, who's that guy? And if he did it on a consistent basis, just tried it, we'd all be like, who's that guy? So I just think that there's still room for some growth in it once you become, bounded to the system. I'm hopeful. I'm trying to be hopeful. It's Sunday.
I'm hopeful when it comes to the system that they will look better in the system and be better in the system. I agree with you. But in terms of just individually, aside from the system, whether these players' games are going to grow anymore, I don't know. But let's see. What is that? What is that? Tormento? Yeah. Tormento Rocks 1.
Rocks. Yeah.
If you look at Boston, they have buy-in from ownership to the GM, from the head coach to the players. They all buy in on their philosophy of winning. Knicks aren't cohesive in that way. Okay, but it's half a season though, right? This is their new collaboration with the coach. The coach is trying to put in his system. The players are trying to fill the system out. They're just not there yet. And remember, Boston wasn't Boston the first year either. Right? They made changes in coaching staffs. They made coaches and players. They went to the finals that year. Next thing you know, Robin Williams was gone, the third, the center, and Marcus Smart was gone. They said, you know what, this, just being totally defensive minded and having guys who can't shoot, that hurt us because they crowded them in the playoffs. They didn't get a lot of it, and they were able to divert that attention to Tatum, right? They made changes. They brought in KP. Drew Holiday kind of fell in their lap. And
that's the part. That's the sore part for me. He was gifted to them. Milwaukee did the dumbest thing and let him walk out that door. And that changed the whole format, and because it hurt us big, allowing Drew Holiday, perennial, I'll say best two-way, probably one of the best two-way players in the game. I rate him as far as during the time at that point, probably the top 2 or 3 in the game at it.
And in my opinion, it's a Drew Holiday type player that we need next to Brunson. I think if the Knicks really want to be serious about winning the championship, and I've been going back and forth in my head about this, and I talked to Freezy about it the other day. I think this is the Knicks' best shot of winning the championship is to get I didn't even mention Drew Holiday. I was thinking Lonzo Ball type, Sean Livingston type, but Drew Holiday fits in there too next to Brunson. Now you got 2 guys that can handle the ball. You have somebody who could play the point of attack defense, navigate those screens, has some height to him, has some toughness to him, can run the offense. To me, that's the Knicks' best chance of winning. You need a guy like that next to Brunson because Bridges ain't it. He's not it.
Yeah. You need a solid next to Brunson. You need some guy between a solid 6'5" to 6'8" that is defending, that can pick up, 1 through 4 quickly, It's tough. Brunson does his best. I can't, for what his size is, he leans in there. This guy will take getting ran over by a center. You can't ask for a guy more than that. He's 6 feet, 6'1", if that it's at best. So, and these guys are big, so I give him his credit where it's due. He's had certain limitations, yeah, but what he gives us on the other end, it makes up for it, I believe, when he's locked in.
And he has been better defensively in the past, and we need that now as well in terms of his team.
Steph Curry got the same treatment. People forget that when they first was in Golden State, they hunted Curry, because I was still a big Curry fan even at that point, because that still haunts me till today, where he was taking 1 pick before us. It ripped it out of my heart.
Dwayne Dennis, nobody would admit it, but the Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and Isaiah Hartenstein team was better and should have been given another season to win or lose. Well, nothing we could have done about Isaiah Hartenstein unless we would have did that work quite early. And the Knicks were trying to save flexibility. They didn't know Hartenstein was going to be that. And so, they wanted to keep their flexibility, and then he turned into that. Because just imagine a double big lineup with Hartenstein and Cat. Right now, you got somebody else that could pass the ball, move the ball, can also rebound, protect the rim. You know what I mean? Like that changes everything. So, I
can't blame the organization on that. Blame the CBA on that one.
Right. Unless you want to blame them for that initial contract. They didn't know. Yeah.
Hartenstein was fairly new in the league, right. And he developed a lot under Thibodeau. A lot. Yeah. Give Tibbs credit for that. He also gives Tibbs credit for that as well.
Yeah. All right. This is the last one. We're going to get out of here. My holy king, the Mike Brown effect is wearing off like it did in Sacramento. I think it's so early, though. The Knicks are going through a rough patch. Do we want to give them at least the end of the year to see how this rounds out before we, say he needs to be fired and he's not it, and they're not listening.
I think a lot of the difference too is that, he had Sabonis, he had what's the other fast guard? those guys get downhill a lot better. You know, Sabonis plays with his back to the basket a lot better. It's a difference. It makes a difference.
Yeah. 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 Sherwin's in the house. Our team will be better if we have Randall instead of Cat. Randall had his issues too. Yeah, but you didn't. He was a tough one though. That's for sure.
Yeah, both of them. It's tough because it's the mental makeup. You know, how do you judge that? You know, do you go to an NFL system where you start, asking questions about somebody's passed away mother and things like that, and how do you judge that? And right now, the two players that we have picked up, their mental makeup is being challenged here. This is a tough place to play.
No doubt about it. I don't know if our offense is good enough to win of late. We scored 99 points. I agree with you in terms of our 3-point defense and our defense overall, 29th in the league over this past 10 games. But the offense has been a hot mess as well. Scored 99 points last night. I think without Brunson, except for one game, we've scored maybe no more than 113, 14, 15 points. And right now, our offense over the past 10 games is number 16th in the league, and our net rating is number 15. So both, 25. So both the defense and the offense has been a hot mess.
We're at our best when, we're all at our best when we're getting steals, we're getting downhill. We're at our best, running, but that as of lately has been stagnant. I haven't seen where they got the ball pass in 21, at 21 seconds. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Who cares if he doesn't like him, but he has to maximize Cat? Wasn't that everyone's main beef last year, maximizing shit? Coach has to suck it up and be accountable for standing up for Cat. Cat had his best season, one of his best. He had a career year last year. If this offense is dependent on getting stops, I don't listen. I get he wants to play fast. But pace is not just about transition basketball. Pace is also, you can have pace in the half court as well. And I don't see this team as a team that's going to be a defensive juggernaut, get stops, run up the court, like that type of pace team. I think this is more of a good half court pace team. And I'm not saying we can't get transition baskets, we can. But I think when he's talking about playing faster and pace, I don't think it's about getting stops on defense, leaking out and what have you, because this team is just not built for that. But you can have pace in the half court offense.
And a lot of it too is, we don't have all world screeners. We just don't. When you start looking at other teams, these guys are much better at running screens than us. Is it the screener's fault? Is it the guy with the ball, how he comes off of it? Does he make that immediate read and go down? Those are little small details that become very huge when they're not, implemented, when they're not executed properly. So if you start watching that point of the game, you start saying, yeah, that's where the problem was.
Yeah. Shout out to King Signers rocking with us. Salute Queen and Knick Nation. I agree with you about a bigger 2-guard next to JB. Also, the team needs to get that passion and grit back. I said it on Ron the Don show. Yeah. Anyway, we rocking for 1:48. I just thought this was gonna be like a 45-minute.
No, it's passion. There's a lot of passion lately. I'm telling you. I was watching the chat the other day, and these guys they entertained me because they were going at it. Boy.
Yeah. For sure. Any last words?
I'll be at the game tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'll be in a suite. So you guys may hear me yelling. You know what I mean? If you hear some obscenities, it's me.
Good for
you know what I mean? We should beat Dallas. I'm listening.
We don't know if Brunson and Hart is going to play. That's a part of it. Like, we can't take that out of the equation. Like, I know
Hart is expected to play. Hart is expected to play
Yeah. I know as Knicks fans, we expect to win. We could take 4 starters out the line. Oh man, how do we lose that game? Like it does impact us, but last night was winnable. And I think Dallas is winnable. Which Knicks team is going to show up and who's going to step up for the Knicks? Because without Brunson, we need somebody other than Deuce to step up for the Knicks.
If you see me out on the floor, just say, hey, he's a good guy. You know, he didn't mean it. You know, he had a breakdown.
Right, the frustration just boiled over. You know,
just boiled over. He didn't mean it. He didn't mean to run out there. He didn't mean it. You know what I mean? To drop kick somebody. He's sorry. Trust me.
Right. Yeah.
It's not premeditated. It's not premeditated. He didn't say it on the show.
Right.
If you get that phone call from me, Steph, delete that show immediately.
Right. For sure. I appreciate you joining me, making this fun. Like this 1 hour 50 minutes went like nothing. Because I just enjoyed your company, enjoyed having you on the show. I definitely appreciate you. Definitely. Anytime you want to hop on, even if it's me and Geoff, you know.
Yes, definitely. I love coming on your show. I definitely appreciate this platform. You know, I love learning from you guys. I love hearing you guys cook. You know, you and Geoff, like I say, a lot of times if I'm not in the chat, a lot of times, you know, I'm a silent listener and I'm learning. So I appreciate you. And anytime, Steph, you know, I'm always here. So
I definitely appreciate that. And thank you for bringing the insight, the schematics. I think I love.
Yeah, I'm gonna email that to you right after I come up here. You'll see me. I'll email them to you.
Yeah, and you share that perspective. And when Delusional is on the show, he shares that perspective, something that I think the channel is missing. So I definitely appreciate you and Delusional sharing that with us, giving us those insights when you do join the show. And just shout out to the chat, you know, very active. Those listening to us on YouTube, those listening to us on X, Lexicon on X, coming at me yesterday. You have to tease one of the silent listeners. You know, I appreciate you for listening. Yeah, I appreciate everybody, and definitely the replay gang. I'm gonna get to some of those comments as well. I'll be back Tuesday for the recap. I think Geoff will be back as well, and whoever else wants to join us to recap this Dallas game. And then I'll see if I'm gonna go on Monday night after the game to do the weekly preview show where we preview who the opponents are going to be. I'll let you know on about that. But I appreciate everybody for making this fun. Actually, I'm never like, oh God, I gotta go do this show. It's always fun, even when we're losing, because you're good, Geoff is good, the panel is good, the chat is good. So it makes it fun, and you get the support during this.
Yes, it's better. It's even better to come on when you lose, because as they say, we're in misery right now, and misery loves company. We need some company.
Get that therapy session.
Yes, I need it.
Right. All right. Until next time, family.
Until next time.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Go so.
Where you at?